Welcome to part 4 on the nature of evil, and finally we're up to the component where we actually have a look at these axes of different types of evil I mentioned in part 1. So I'm excited to be here because I haven't seen anything or anyone describing evil like this. To understand this diagram I have here, this model, I will explain. We have this dotted line here, and on the left we have the clueless or more clueless, and we have the knowers on this side, meaning the subconscious, unintentional, accidental evildoers, evil by consequence, and the conscious, full intentional, knowing, desiring, passion, purposeful evil on the right hand side. Even though there can be some overlap, this isn't an exact science. Down the left hand side we have all the columns of the different types of evil. Up the top here, all these color-coded little stick men signify a type of person. We have the bum, the voter, the Christian, the average sheeple or unthinking average Joe, police, politicians, bankers, philosophers, as in bad philosophers, religion, religious idols, the Pope, leaders, priests, the legal system and people who deal in the legal system, and then the callow king. On the left here we have the desire to cause harm, and then I've placed those individuals, those groups, on this axes, and I haven't numbered it. It's just on the left is less, on the right is more, because it's too hard to make this an exact science. So that's a little bit of guesswork, but as you'll see, it is valuable to understand. Desire to cause harm, actual harm, the amount of victims, if it's indirect or direct, understanding of morality, evasion, self or others, evil against the self or others, conviction, complexity, empathy, and care of what's actually right. This is what I have today, February 2nd, 2025. Of course, I know for a fact this will update over time, and I will just present to you today, right now, what I have discovered and what I am understanding about the concept of evil and the people who commit evil. I'd like to go over a few of my notes before we proceed with these axes, describing in extra detail the evil of evasion, even though part 1, 2, 3 has been heavily focused on the evil of evasion, because practically everyone does this, and I'm trying to hit it from so many different angles so you just can't have any excuses to not understand anymore, and to help you to actually understand this honestly, because sometimes it can be very difficult to grasp. So here are some other ways to understand evasion and dishonesty, omission. Evasion is the wish that what you don't want to be true isn't true. It's the dismissal of ideas you feel probably are true, but you hope aren't. Voting, that government is actually not for you, and voting is not helping the problem but making things so much worse. That you know religion isn't actually good for you, and Jesus isn't coming back, and having faith in some supernatural evil monster and getting on your knees and praying and worshipping, you know that's not good for you. You know deep down, you're not stupid. Sometimes people just pretend to be. So that's what evasion is. It's the dismissal of ideas. You feel they probably aren't true. Is Jesus coming back? Probably not, but I'll pretend, I'll wish and hope that he is. It's unjustifiable suppression, psychological suppression, of putting the facts down deep in your subconscious to not be visible, not be seen, not be considered, and to focus on the lies. Evasion is the wish that I can't and won't let something be real, and it is so. If I don't let something be real, it's not real. It's to believe you have a magic power where you can alter the facts of reality by unfocusing your attention and disbelieving what's true. Drinking alcohol every night, smoking every day, it might be bad for other people, but for me, no, I wish that's not true, and therefore my magical wish is greater than the facts of reality. If I don't look at it, it can't become real. If I don't look at my marriage or my relationship, then how terrible it actually is and how bad it's making me feel, oh, it's not real. No, it's something else, something outside of my control. My disease, my sickness, my lack of financial success, relationship success, aesthetic success with your body. If I don't look at it, if I don't actually problem solve and introspect to see what the real problem is, then it's not my fault. I have nothing to do with it. It's external factors. It's mysticism. It's magic. It's God. It's something else. It's not me, though. By avoiding focusing my attention, I can push those ideas out of reality. Out of focus, out of reality. That's what people think. It's to believe you can change the facts of reality by refusing to believe reality exists. Look, it's evil to deceive people, and it's also evil to allow yourself to be deceived. There's that saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Voting is so evil because you've willfully decided not to know how that particular action is doing you absolutely no good, and is in fact causing you, your friends, and your family an unbelievably enormous amount of suffering and pain. When you actually bring your conscious focus onto the facts, those facts are inescapable and unavoidable, the amount of suffering and pain that is caused by supporting such a tyrannically destructive system. If you ignore this, you have just accepted the fact you are choosing to be dishonestly evasive and in turn evil. Choosing not to know the consequences of your actions is choosing to know. You know how bad it is what you're doing, and that's exactly why you choose not to know. Because you know if you face the truth, you would recognize your own evil and you would have to change. But because you lack courage, integrity, and dignity, you prefer to live as the blind fool, which should drown you in feelings of guilt and shame, because you know you deserve so much better than the way you treat yourself. Evil doesn't care about your intentions. Evil doesn't care if you do evil or don't. Evil just is. It's not a thinking entity like the devil. Evil doesn't whisper in your ear and tell you, good job for being evil. Evil doesn't tell you to look away and hide from the truth of the evil actions you commit. You do. Evil is like the dark side of the Force out of Star Wars. It does nothing. People do everything. When you do evil, you've chosen to align with this dark side of the Force. This ideology, these false sets of belief, anti-reality, the matrix, that which is not real, whether you know it or not. The first step on the path to the dark side is acts of evil committed against the self. Dishonesty leads to omission. Omission leads to evasion. Evasion leads to faith. Faith leads to suffering. For how can one not suffer when they have chosen to live in a world which does not exist? Jesus is coming back. That is not the real world. Voting for government is good for me. That is not the real world. I can feed my child popcorn, chocolate milk, and ice cream, and I'm a good parent. That is not the real world. That's not any world. It's a fantasy. How can one be consistently good in totality to themselves and others if they don't live in the real world? The good only exists in the real world. It can't exist in fantasy, in the dishonest faking of reality. Dishonesty, which is the pretending of reality, is the realm of evil. That is the dimension of existence it inhabits. Evil only has weight in the realm of your mind, specifically of false ideas. False ideas are not true and are disconnected from objective reality. They are an imagining, a wish, a hope, a dream, or a desire detached from the real world. Ideas such as that it is good to be humble, that it is wrong to be proud, that moral perfection is impossible, that emotions are a means of cognition, that ambition and wealth are wrong, that faith is superior to reason, that sacrifice is noble, that service is honorable, that you owe allegiance to the collective, that knowledge is impossible, that you don't deserve to live for yourself, that capitalism is bad and communism is good, that jibby jabs are good for you and that eating natural foods is bad, that voting is good and anarchy is bad, and the list continues on and on and on with so many false ideas that they are disconnected from the real world, and because of that they are evil. They are evil because they are not true ideas. They don't represent the actuality of reality and have consequentially destructive effects to yourself and to others. One can be consequentially evil and honest, as in the case of an inexperienced youngling going to church or voting, for example. But the moment one chooses to be dishonest, to deliberately omit reality and evade, is the moment they have intended to be evil, to cause harm. It is an evil act against yourself to not live up to your true potential. You are depriving yourself of the happiness you deserve. Any kinds of blocks, suppressions, or obstacles you deliberately place in your path to stymie your development and limit your growth is a self-destructive act. On the issue of voting, there can be no intellectual or moral neutrality on such an important issue. The moral cowards who try to evade it by pleading ignorance, confusion, or helplessness, who keep silent and avoid the battle, yet feel a growing sense of guilty terror over the question of whether they can or cannot change their minds about such an important topic, they are culpable of siding with evil, provided you are doing nothing and continuing that evil. Neutrality is evil. Siding with evil is evil. The good is doing what is right, what is good, fighting against the evil, sanctioning it, saying, no, this is not right, and I do not support it. I condemn it with everything I have. So you may have noticed this really weird picture. It's not my picture in the background, it's just the apartment I'm staying at in Buenos Aires, Argentina at the moment. Yeah, I wouldn't really call it great art, but it's nicer than some of the other things in this room. All right, coming back to these axes. Oh, yes, this will be fun. So again, on this side you have the accidental, clueless evil, the people who are not consciously, intelligently trying to be evil, but they're evil via dishonesty, via evasion, via omission, by not thinking properly, by willfully being stupid, not living up to their potential. Whereas the people on this side are living up to their potential, they're exercising the intelligence they have, but they're doing it in a cruel, malevolent, evil way. Wrong, bad. They know what they're doing and they know it's wrong, they know it's violating the golden rule of equity, but the people on the left here, they just don't get it. Though, as I said, it's still evil. Alright, let's look at the first axis here, which is the desire to cause harm. So again, this is not exact, and some of these placeholders are very difficult to put down. But let's start on the right here, the Callow King. As I described, the Callow King is who I believe, I can't say for a certain fact, is the one person, the one being, the one small group, whoever is at the top of this pyramid that is controlling the world, who is controlling the cabal. Because hopefully you do understand that by this point. If you don't have that understanding, well, you still have a lot of work to do. That's not for this video. Taking it on an informed assumption, premise that you understand there is such a thing as the cabal, which is controlling the world. So the Callow King is the head of that cabal, the mastermind behind it all. And that could be a title, not just an individual, because this cabal has been controlling the world for all of history. There always is a cabal of evil people, there always is a hierarchy, there always is someone at the top who's controlling all the rest, and they may come and go, they may die and be replaced, but there's always someone at the top who is controlling the rest. It's like the Sith. They always have the master and the apprentice underneath. There is always a master controlling everything else. So I've got the Callow King with the desire to cause the most harm because they're at the top. They're the ones orchestrating everything against the world. The next desire to cause the most harm, and see, this is difficult because it's like, who is the next in line that really wants to cause the most harm? Is it religion? Is it the legal system? Is it these false, evil philosophers? Is it the bankers? Is it the politicians? It's really hard to place a second and put an exact number to them. Like, say, for instance, if out of 1,000, the callow king is 1,000 for desire to cause harm. It's like religion, legal, are they 990? Are they 820? 940? Where are they? It's just lots. Right up on the end of the scale, they have a great, unfathomable to the normal man and woman's mind. Unless you study this for a living, people can't comprehend the desire to cause harm that these institutions actually have. They just can't fathom it. And most of the viewers watching this probably still can't fathom it. I hope these videos give you a better understanding, and you better have watched part 1, 2, 3, 4, because this all fits in together. And I have lots of other videos that explain the rest of my views in great detail. But we know for a fact, all up on to the right hand side of the desire to cause harm, after the callow king, the legal system is right up there. Of course they want to cause so much harm. Religion, yes, again. Philosophers, the nasty philosophers who deliberately create evil systems of thought to cause chaos and confusion, so people don't understand right from wrong, up from down, in from out, and they're just totally topsy-turvy. And then the bankers creating their currency out of thin air, and I'm not going to explain how all that works. That's for different videos and different lines of research. Again, that's acting under the assumption that you are well informed in that area. And if you don't understand how the legal system is so evil and corrupt, and the religion and the philosophers and the bankers and the politicians, you need to put a lot of study into those areas to fully understand that. So out of the politicians, bankers, philosophers, religious leaders and the legal system, who really has the greater desire to cause harm? Oh, that's up for debate. I'm going to put them all grouped together. They all want to cause a lot of harm. Let's look at the people on this side who are clueless. Police I've got higher up because it depends per individual with police. Some police, they have a great desire to cause harm and they actively attack people. And then some police have a lower desire to cause harm. Some even have a really low desire to cause harm, and then when they're told that they have to cause harm because that's their job, they end up quitting. And that's the best kind of police officer, is the one who quits. But as a principle, they all have to have some kind of desire to cause harm because that just comes with the job. That is, in the role of being a police officer, is to violate other people's rights most of the time. Not all the time, of course, but most of the time, because they're enforcing legislation, which most of the time is not objective and is subjective for that business model, which is a franchise called the government. Then we have sheeple. Some sheeple have a greater desire to cause harm than even the police. It depends on an individual by individual basis, but they generally do have a reasonable level to cause harm. And you have Christians, well, on some respects, they might even be right up there with the callow king in their beliefs, that they believe if you don't worship the same God and if you're not part of the same cult as them, then you deserve to burn in hell for all of eternity. And they've got that desire that is the rectification you deserve for not being an obedient, mindless, worshipping fool. So you can, in a way, put the Christian right over there. But for the average Christian, again, this is not an extremely accurate generalization. I'll put them about there. I think they all do have a desire to cause harm. Some more than others, some less than others, but how can you believe in such a false philosophy? Because that's, in essence, what a religion is. Well, it's the foolish man's attempt at a philosophy. You can't believe that kind of nonsense without wanting to cause harm to others. The bum, this is harm against himself for taking drugs and heroin and cigarettes and alcohol and sitting on the side of the street begging money, fat. I had a bum today. He was just sitting on the street. He was fat. He was a fat bum and he's just trying to talk to me, and I was on the phone talking to someone. I didn't even pay him any attention. It's like, really, you're going to... And I know what he wanted. He was begging for money. You're going to beg for money while you're sitting on the street like a filthy slob? What are you doing to yourself, man? You deserve so much better. That is evil against the self, and there is a desire to hurt and harm the self because they haven't exercised their reason. So they feel all this guilt and shame, and they're causing harm against themselves. And then you have the voter. Depends on the voter again. Some voters are right down here and they don't actually want to cause harm. Like consciously, if you ask them about that, they say, oh, I don't actually want to cause harm. But then a lot of them obviously do, and they go up here, yeah, I want the government to tax you. I want you to pay for my welfare. I want you to pay for me to not do anything, to have my gender transition surgery. I want you to be robbed for this and this and this reason. So again, it depends on the voter. Let's just take an average sample of the typical voter, which is, again, not an exact science. I have to be very clear with that. Let's put them down here. But then let's have a look at the actual harm that these people are causing. Obviously, the Callow King is causing the most harm in the world because they're orchestrating all the evil. So they are causing the most harm. And then, right after that, I've got the police, because they're the ones who are physically doing all the harmful things. Police, you could sometimes include military in here as well, but it's the police. Because without the police, that group or category, class of people, the politicians, the bankers, philosophers, religion, all these people, they've got no power. They can't do anything. They can put all these negative ideas out there, but it's only when someone buys those ideas and enforces it for them that their evil ideas have any effect or power in the world. So, because you can have a group of people creating all types of evil legislation, terrible evil laws and philosophies, and bankers creating all this evil stuff, but if they don't have the physical manpower, the police, to enforce it, it's powerless, it's useless, it's got no impact in the real world. It's only when you combine those intellectually destructive ideas, the legal system, evil philosophies and religions, and then you have the muscle enforcing those evil ideas, then it has an effect. So the actual harm, in a way you could even put the police above the Callow King here, because the Callow King isn't physically causing any harm, but then you can argue, well, if it wasn't for the Callow King at the top, the police wouldn't exist as an agency. Sure, you'd still get dumb drongo gang members. It'd be so much rarer on that scale who commit harmful acts, but you're not going to have a worldwide unified gang called the police who are enforcing this guy here's will, because that's all they're doing. This force of police are simply enacting the will of the Callow King, but they have no idea that's what they're doing. And if you try to tell them what they're doing, it would take 1,000 years to teach them that, unless they're actually honest and they want to learn, they listen to videos like this and think for themselves. But, never in their wildest dreams could they possibly imagine they're doing this. They'd think, where's the legal system? Legal system's here, and the politicians are listening to them, but the Callow King, I'm not working for him. Yes, you are. That is exactly who you're working for. Who do you think tells the legal system to create such evil, complex ideas and structures for controlling people, these terrible subjective rules? Who do you think's puppeteering all the politicians? The politicians are just going by the legal system. They're inferior to the legal system. The legal system's just doing what the bank's telling them to do, and the bank's just doing what the religious people, the Pope and whatnot, are telling them what to do. The voter is also causing a lot of harm because they are supporting all these systems. They're indirectly causing harm as we get down here, but in a way they are directly supporting all these other people to control and enslave me, you, and the rest of humanity, and to design pharmaceutical drugs that people believe are good for them that ends up making them sicker and kills them most of the time, and a lot of those deaths can be very painful and awful, and it's absolutely evil. I've put the bum so far to the right on this scale because of the actual harm they commit against themselves. They end up taking all different kinds of drugs. They end up living on the streets. This is a terrible way to treat oneself, and there is an enormous amount of self-harm. being addicted to alcohol, cigarettes, junk food, and this is what I see firsthand all the time, watching these bums on the street. It is not healthy whatsoever. The voter and the Christian, the sheeple, they're all going to be self-harming with their false negative ideas, because you can be guaranteed if they've got one bad idea, they're going to have many. If they're using faith as a means of cognition, they're going to be using it not just for one aspect of their life, but many. And that is going to create a whole host of problems they are not aware of. They don't understand the cause and effect. And they are also going to be influencing other people, say with Christianity, infecting other people's minds with such evil dribble. I've been a victim of Christianity in the past, and that caused unbelievable amounts of suffering from that mentality, like out of this world. I wouldn't wish it upon any of those people on the right, even the Callow King, to experience the suffering I went through from those false beliefs and ideas that the Christians preach. Heinous. And the voter is obviously voting for terrorist organizations to dominate and enslave us. So yes, there is a lot of harm, though they're not fully aware of what they're doing, but the politicians are aware of that. The legal institutions and those people who work for them, the Bar Association, they're full aware of what they're doing. To a certain extent, the higher up you get in the chain of command, the more aware they are, because they need compartmentalization for their schemes and tricks and plans to work. David Icke is actually, I'd say, the expert in explaining how the cabal works. Does he get everything right? No, I don't think so, but he gets a lot right. Gives you a very good overall picture. If you haven't studied David Icke's work, I highly recommend it. Let's have a look here at the amount of victims. So I've got the bum all the way to the left because he's only causing harm to himself. Well, he can still cause harm to other people, and he's just an eyesore on the street. But compared to the voter, who is essentially indirectly, and you can say directly, supporting the enslavement of everyone in the country, so they have a massive impact. But the politicians and the police and the legal institutions are going to be more responsible than the voter, though they obviously both need each other to survive. The Callow King is every single person in the world is a victim. There's no one escaping. Not a single person is not a victim of the Callow King, of that Kabbalistic organization. Every single person in the world is a victim. I've got the police because, who has a greater amount of victims, the police or, I'm trying to decide. I've got the police closer to the Callow King with their amount of victims, but the police, they can't victimize everybody. They can't victimize the politicians, for example, or people who have higher positions in the legal system, or the Pope. So those people actually would have more victims, because the police can only victimize you and me, people that are not part of the cabal. But if you're part of the cabal, well, the police leave you alone then. They obviously don't understand that's what they're doing, but that is what they're doing. They're leaving the Kabbalists alone. It'll be a toss-up, really, between the bankers and religion. It's like, that's debatable. I don't know for certain who is higher up in the food chain. If it is the bankers, like the Rothschilds and the people who control the central banks, or if it is the religious leaders or rulers. Hard to tell, but then I would say, the bankers or religion next to the Callow King, then legality, then politicians, and then it would actually be police. So you'd swap that around. It doesn't matter. I've already explained that. And for instance, let's just throw a rapist on here. If someone's a rapist, they're only raping one person, so their amount of victims would be very similar to that of a bum. That's obviously an evil thing to do, to rape someone or to steal from someone or murder someone. But every time you are voting, you are committing more evil, because you are effectively supporting the enslavement of millions of people, hundreds of millions, depending on the country you're living in. And that is categorically more evil than raping one person. Sure, a rapist is directly thieving someone's consent to their bodily autonomy. A voter is indirectly, still directly, though if you compare it to physically taking someone's thieving their consent. Okay, you can say a voter is indirectly supporting the theft of everyone's bodily autonomy. And I think that's worse. I think it's worse to do that. Though that can be up for debate. But at any rate, they're both evil. Don't do either of them, obviously. So let's have a look at indirect and direct now. So what do I really mean by that? I need to be clear on that. Let's say directly as being directly responsible, where indirectly it's like the voter. The voter... Ooh, why have I got the Christian here? The Christian is directly responsible. Why isn't that moving? I have to move it. The Christian is directly responsible for spreading their disgusting ideas. The voter, they're directly responsible for voting, but they are not directly responsible for the legislation to be written and enforced. That would be the politicians, the legal system, and the police. When it comes to directness, an easy way to understand that would be, okay, voters are down here and the police are up here, right next to the Callow King, because they are directly enforcing the will of the Callow King. They're directly doing that. And you can also say, well, the legal system is telling the police what to do. They are responsible, but they're not as directly responsible and as culpable as the police, because they're the ones physically enacting all the evil. Yes, they're being ordered around by the people above them, the politicians, legal system, but those people are detached. They are one step removed from the hands-on atrocities that are committed. So you can say direct is the direct creation of terrible ideas or terrible law, legislation, the enactment of it and the enforcement of it. That can be called direct, and then indirect is where you support those evil ideas and evil actions while not being directly involved in their creation and enforcement, only supporting them. They are both evil, but I think it is more evil to be directly responsible, to be in the creation and enforcement process of false, inverted, evil ideas. Next is understanding of morality. So I've got the bum down here on the left, because a bum is someone who has had a very bad life and has got addicted to drugs and they really don't know what they're doing. They're totally clueless. And then I have... Why have I got the voter there? Ah, that's why. I've got the voter, the sheeple, right next to the bum, because they're just absolutely clueless. They're more indoctrinated and brainwashed than even your typical voter, because sometimes you get people who vote who understand a little bit that politics is corrupt and they try to vote their way out of corrupt politics, and so they have a slightly better understanding of morality than the sheeple, but they still don't understand it well enough to comprehend that they're violating my rights when they are voting. Police, very little understanding of morality, right from wrong, very clueless. The voter would be above them. The Christian, or why have I got them understanding written? I'll put, the Christian, really, I mean, you can put the Christian down here as well, and the Christian's probably the same level as the sheeple. No, a little bit in front of the sheeple. These are big generalizations here as well, remember that. If you're looking at individuals, it's so much easier, but I'm trying to judge this from groups. And even within groups, people have different mindsets. So it's difficult. But I say the further up, the more intelligent and conscious directly involved in evil, I think, I can't say this for sure, that those people understand morality more. They understand that what they are doing is wrong and evil. And I'd say the Callow King knows what he's doing is wrong and just loves doing evil. But again, that may be mistaken. This is just an educated guess, saying that these people understand that what they're doing is wrong. It's like the legal system. They give you these loopholes. They deliberately don't put men and women into their legislation. And I've been to court many times, and even when I've lost, there's been no repercussions or negative outcomes for me. I mean, it's a pain in the ass having to get pulled over by police and go to court so often, but there's been no actual repercussions, because I think they really do understand right from wrong, and when you don't play into their game and pretend to be a legal person, then they go, well, we don't want to actually be bad for whatever reason. I don't fully get it. But you may be asking, okay, well, what's the whole point of this? If it's too hard, if it's too generalized to actually classify people from these groups onto a scale, if it's very difficult, what's the whole point of this? And I think it's to give you a basic understanding, so then you can look at individuals and even groups and see where they are on the scale of evil. If anyone's in government, well, you don't need this video for that. It's more judging individual people, and just so you can have a better idea of evil as a totality, what it actually is, and then to judge yourself as well, to check, are you being evil? Where are you on this scale? Because, oh, that's a cool one. We should just quickly do this. So your desire to cause harm, and we should put this as unjustifiably, because you could have a great desire to cause harm to people who deserve it. That's a different thing. But to initiate harm against the innocent, unjustifiably, it should be 0. Down here, you have no desire to do that. Actual harm should be 0. Your amount of victims should be 0. That is including yourself. You shouldn't be a victim of yourself. Should be not even on this scale of indirect understanding. Your understanding of morality should be as far to the right as possible. I get it, if you're not a professional like I am, or a professional philosopher, you're not going to understand it as much as I or we do. But you should be at least halfway on this scale onto the right. You should aim to have a general understanding of morality and of rights, so then you don't violate other people's rights and you don't do things which are blatantly evil, like voting, going to church, feeding a child poisonous garbage. Evasion, you should not be evading. Don't evade. When it comes to evasion, I make it a habit not to evade, to always introspect and be honest to make sure I don't evade. So you should and can be onto the far left of the scale. And I've got a Callow King here with evading, because I did this a while ago, and which is fun, because it's like, oh, okay, do I still agree with that? Does the Callow King evade? I think the Callow King probably doesn't evade, because he really does, know what's going on. He doesn't do any evading, but anyone who needs to be underneath him does have to evade, because he's at the top, he's the superior. But anyone else who wants some taste of power needs to be inferior, subordinate, obedient to him. So they must evade to be able to get away with it in their mind, be able to live with themselves. I've got the bum all the way to the right because he's just totally evading everything. It's like, at least a police officer has a job and makes money and can buy food, but a bum can't even do that. But as I've got the police officer, that's the police officer, is very close to a bum, because they have to evade everything. They don't think about, am I doing what's right or wrong? Because if they had any kind of conscience and focused, hold on, what am I doing here? Is this legislation objective? Is it right? Is it moral? Is it ethical? Should I be doing this? Meh, I just want to get paid. I don't care. The moment a cop stops evading, they would have to quit. They would have to. They say, I can't be part of this evil, atrocious, abominable organization anymore. No way. Unless they were going to stay in it and pull people over and not fine them, or keep the other police in line or something like that. Does that really happen though? I don't think so. There's no way you could stay in the police force. The sheeple obviously evades massively. Same with the Christian, the politician, the voter. They have to evade to live their life, because they're living a life of fantasy, of inverted reality. No matter how many billions of dollars they have, the Trump or the Musk or the Bill Gates, they have to evade reality. They have to evade their actions to live with themselves. It's like a means of survival at that point, when they're part of the cabal and they're just singing and dancing on the show. Trump and Musk and Bill Gates, and they literally sing and dance, and they're being moved. They're a puppet on a hand. They have to evade, otherwise they'd want to kill themselves. And I think some of them do commit suicide, because it'd be such an awful life. Those people in the spotlight are more enslaved than you and I. It'd be an awful existence. I feel sorry for them. So, evil against the self or others. The bum is obviously massively all against the self. The Christian has an enormous amount against themselves, but they're also, when they spread that filth, that most hideous doctrine, it then infects other people as well. I've heard of people being in abusive relationships where they'd get beaten up by their partner and they'd stay in the relationship because Jesus taught sacrifice and forgiveness and all this nonsense. It's just, I've used the word hideous, horrible, abominable, atrocious. What other words can I use to express how evil, cruel, malevolent, sadistic, oh, that's a good one, that dogmatic ideology is? The Callow King, against himself, that would be debatable, but against obviously the rest of the world, yes. Police against the rest of the world, but they have to be against themselves. So there's obviously, when someone's evil, there is a certain extent it has to be against themselves. And if someone wants to be evil against themselves, okay, that's their choice. If they want to be a bum or they want to take drugs and do these other immoral things, which I would consider evil against themselves, okay, but most of the time it's very difficult to be able to be evil against yourself and get away with it without influencing and having an effect on other people. That's where it really starts to get evil, when you're affecting other people. A Christian affects other people much more than a bum. Same with a voter, a sheeple, because a sheeple's going to vote. A sheeple is probably a Christian as well, and they've got other horrible ideas with the politicians, bankers, philosophers, religion, legal. Well, obviously that's against everyone else. Conviction. Is the bum convinced he's doing the right thing? Well, no, I'm sure he isn't. The Callow King would have the most conviction, and then down from there. Well, when we look at the religious institutions, are they... Well, what do I mean by conviction? Do I mean conviction that what they are doing is right? They have the right to do it and that it's true. Well, obviously, I keep saying obviously. It's obvious to me, but it's probably not obvious to many other people who haven't studied this for as long as I have. Because all these people, they know it's not right, but they're convinced they have the right to do it. They know it's bullcrap, but they think they have the right to do it because they don't see the Goyim or the rest of humanity as humans, as equal to them. They see them as inferior animals or as legal persons, as the mass population who have volunteered into their own servitude. Because they express that. They think servitude is honourable and noble and they should be servants. So therefore, they think they can get away with it and they have the right to do that. They're convicted. They are convinced that what they are doing is right. They have the right to do it. The voter sometimes can be convinced that what they're doing is right and that Trump is for us. Trump is for us. For Biden. For this politician. And then sometimes they're just like, well, I hate that politician more and I think this politician is slightly better, so I'll vote for them. And they have very little conviction, so it depends which voter you're talking about. Complexity. Okay, this is one I have been itching to share because just under the Callow King, complexity definitely, hands down, needs to go to the legal system. To the legal system, and then, oh yes, okay, I was going to say bankers, but when you think about it, no, it is the philosophers, then the bankers. Then, actually religion isn't very complex. Religion's very simple. That's basic. You don't need to be intelligent to figure out that's a scam, but you need to study hard and long to figure out what the hell is going on with the legal system. That is so complex. The legal system, that's the most complex thing I've ever come across. It is out of this world, monstrously complex, and it's so complex because it is so deceptive, it is so evil. That is one of the most evil things I've ever witnessed in my life. If you were to show me a battlefield of people to have their legs blown off and their arms missing, I say that is horrendous, that's violent, but it's not as evil as the legal system. The legal system is more evil because it's so deceptive, because people think it is good on the front. Barely anyone can look at a war zone and see people blown apart and say, yes, that's good. It's very hard to do that, but most people look at the legal system, yeah, that's fantastic, we need that. No, that is objectively evil. And when I say that, I mean all these subjective laws and the trickery and the deception and the whole basis upon fictions. And that's mainstream, they tell you. It's all based upon fictions, legal persons. It's all subjective, fictional nonsense. Not all. I can't even say 99% or 95%, I don't know exactly, but I'd say most of it. It's a general term. Some legal stuff can be good, like innocent until proven guilty. And that could even be considered a fiction because you're saying, well, it's a presumption, really. It's a presumption that one is, because they may actually be guilty. You don't know. Well, not even guilty. I don't like that word. Culpable. Because they may be culpable but feel absolutely no guilt. You shouldn't be speaking about such a professional, organized system using emotional concepts. That's stupid. But again, that's why they use that, because they can trick people into being guilty, feeling an emotional state. They don't have to get culpability or not. It's nonsense. It's like, did you drive 5Ks over the speed limit? Yeah? Are you guilty? No. Why are you using the word guilt? Because they need you to feel guilty. It's easy to do that, to manipulate people's emotional states, because most people are emotional and they're not thinking, they're not thinkers, they're not logical. They're emotionalists, they're rationalists, they're empiricists, they're skeptics, they're mystics. And they're often a conglomeration of all those different types of inept philosophies. So yes, after the Callow King for complexity, because obviously I think they're the one that orchestrates all the rest of the complexities underneath that. They've got the biggest plan. Like Palpatine, just think of it as Palpatine, the most complex, and then the legal system, then the philosophers, then the bankers, because the banking system and the Federal Reserve, that is quite complex as well. I mean, but really, you can easily just crack that apart the instant you realize how it works, which I've explained in other videos. Once you get that, then there's no point of delving any deeper into it. Whereas a legal system, yeah, that's a whole different ballpark. And some of these philosophies, like Immanuel Kant, and I'm studying the history of philosophy at the moment, they can sound quite good on the surface. And so it can be a difficult challenge to undo and to decipher and break through the BS. Complexity, the police, not complex with what the evil they do, that's not complex. They've just been tricked and fooled. They're not trying to be complex, they're just not thinking about anything. Politicians, reasonably complex because they have to spin a lot of lies, but any half-witted individual can see through that nonsense. That probably doesn't need to be up there. It's actually not very complex. The sheeple, the voters, they're all there. Evil isn't complex. Like the voter isn't trying to be complex at all. They're not thinking, so they're right down there. Okay, let's look at empathy now. The Callow King, I don't think the Callow King has any empathy or understanding, being able to step into other people's shoes, because if they did, well, they couldn't do what they do. The same is true for these evil fake philosophers, the legal system, the bankers, the politicians. I don't think they have much empathy at all. And when I say empathy, I mean empathy for oneself, care and self-respect for oneself, and from family and friends to strangers. Just empathy in general to people at large, for mankind, for every individual human. So ideally, you would want your empathy. Oh yeah, that's what I was doing before. I got distracted. Anyway, empathy, you would want to be fully on the right here. You would want to be as empathetic as possible. And I think a true empath doesn't go around saying, I'm an empath. No, don't say that. You're bloody insulting me. You're not being empathetic to me. I don't want to hear that crap. Don't tell me you're an empath. Just be empathetic. Meaning, be able to see through other people's eyes and understand their situation. If you would not like to be cheated or lied to or robbed or raped or murdered or etc., don't do that to someone else, because if you were them, you wouldn't want that to happen to you. So simple. That's what it means to be empathetic. Very easy. And I've got the voter on the right here because they would have some muddied idea about wanting to help other people. They just don't know how to implement it properly because they don't really care. Otherwise, they would have really thought their ideas through. But there's like a basic, implicit, childlike notion of wanting to help and make the world a better place. And that's okay. That's a semi-good thing in a way. It's better than these bastards over here. But a man can wish they would just think for a moment and stop evasively lying to themselves and avoiding the truth, Just have the courage to face reality. So then they could be all the way over there. Like, I mean, put him over there like this. Yeah, there he is. There he is. Now he's got an arrow in his chest because he's aiming to go this way to become more empathetic to the voter. And then he wants to go off the scale and not even be a voter anymore. And I've got the bum here because I'm using empathy also in the context of self-respect. Empathy towards the self, and to commit all those crimes against the self is showing a lack of empathy, I think. That's one way you can look at empathy in this context. And then next we have care of what's right, the last one. The voter does care more than the callow king about what's actually right. That's why they think they're voting, because they think they're doing the right thing. But again, it's a semi-fledged, nascent, fetus-like idea that hasn't formed properly, and they haven't put the effort into mold and sculpt into a real creation to really know what's right. There's no actual care about what's right. It's something that is like Play-Doh that could be molded into something that is potentially right. But the callow king doesn't care what's right. Just care what he thinks is right for and good for him. And the same can be said for all these other groups of people, the false philosophers, the legal system, the bankers, the religion, the politicians, the sheeple, the police, the Christians, the bum. Do they actually care about what's right? Well, no, because they'd spend time learning what's right if one actually cared about what is right. And they wouldn't stop until they found the right answers. Okay, so that's the end of the video. I hope you found this useful and valuable. I know it was quite different to most of my other videos. I was attempting to explain what was going on in my head, what I can see with evil, put this down on paper, on computer, share this, get some feedback, hopefully, see what you think, see if you think this is accurate, there's any merit to this, if you have more axes that would fit onto this model. If you think some of these shouldn't be on the model, I'm open to ideas and hearing what you have to say. And I hope you gain something valuable from this so you can not be evil yourself. And as I was saying, be right here on the desire to cause harm, not cause any actual harm. Have no victims, not even beyond this axis. Understand morality over here, not evade. Be good to yourself and others. Have total conviction that what you are doing is right and you are not doing what is wrong. Have no complexity to your evil plans. Have empathy right over here. Care of what's right. Be right over here on that side. That's where you should be as an individual. That's where I am. And, well, I still strive to be even further off this scale. I still care what's right, and I'm still discovering that. I want to be even more formulated, more clear, more clarity and conviction over here about what's right, what's good, what's moral, because then it's better for me. I have more confidence and certainty in myself. Have more empathy if that's possible. Evade even less if I realize, oh, holy crap, I'm actually evading about that thing and I didn't even realize. Have less evasion, no victims, no harm, less desire. No, you get rid of zero desire. Just to be a better version of yourself every day, constantly growing, moving in the right direction, and being able to recognize evil in your friends and family, because if you watch this, I guarantee you're going to see this kind of behavior in the people you know. And with this information, hopefully you can point it out to them and do something to help them save themselves from themselves. That would be a wonderful thing to do. To not force it upon them, but to help them. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can lead a man to knowledge, but you can't make him think. All right, signing out, and I'll see you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.